Before Adolf Hitler seized power inside of Germany, he had previously attempted to become declared president when he launched his failed coup, the Beer Hall Putsch, or the Munich Putsch. Accompanied by a number of his Nazi leaders, including Erich Ludendorff and Hermann Göring, Hitler marched to the Bürgerbrau Keller and demanded control of Munich. When the putsch failed, Hitler was arrested after he was later found and was found guilty of treason for this. Many believed that he was dealt with incredibly leniently, as without having a sympathetic judge, he could have been sentenced to death for this. But what is the story behind the treason of Adolf Hitler? Remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. Germany as a country had many beer halls, especially inside large southern German cities. They were a place where hundreds and thousands of people would meet for drinks and to socialise in the evening, as well as engage in political debate. One of the largest beer halls in Munich was the Bürgerbrau Keller. Following the loss of the First World War, the Germans were losing power within Europe, and many Germans hated the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed very strict rules on the country. There was a belief that the country had been stabbed in the back by its government, and people turned to more radical ideas, such as those possessed by Adolf Hitler. Hitler stayed in Munich and the army after the war, and he was involved in a number of missions for the government as an agent, spying on different political groups to monitor their ideas and beliefs. It was in these meetings that Hitler infiltrated the German Workers' Party, and he was a fan of their ideas, and with this he joined up in September 1919. He quickly assumed political leadership of the group and rose to prominence within it, but inside of Munich things were very tense with regards to the governance of the city. Hitler held many mass meetings, and he felt pressured to act, and what he did was plan a march on Munich, and he wished to seize power of the city, and would then turn his attention to Berlin. He asked World War I General Erich Ludendorff to help him gain support, and he took inspiration from his future friend Benito Mussolini's March on Rome, which helped him to secure power. It was planned to use Munich as a base for a march against the Weimar Republic and the German government, and Hitler took matters into his own hands. Alongside a huge detachment of SA, his brown shirts, Hitler marched to the Bürgerbrau Keller, where Gustav Ritter von Kahr was making a speech to 3,000 people. In the evening of the 8th of November 1923, Hitler arrived at the beer hall with 603 members of the SA, and they set up a machine gun in the auditorium, virtually holding those inside hostage. He was joined by a number of other high-ranking Nazis, including Rudolf Hess, and the group around him went through the crowd inside the auditorium. He could not hear himself think, and Hitler then fired his pistol into the ceiling and he shouted, "The National Revolution has broken out. This hall is surrounded by 600 men. Nobody is allowed to leave." He continued to speak, saying that the Bavarian government had been deposed, and he proposed he would head up a new government. He then held prominent political leaders hostage in a private room at gunpoint, and ordered them to support his action and revolution. Ludendorff was summoned to be picked up, and further actions in the city were put into place to ensure Hitler had control of important aspects of the city. He had spoken to the crowd and had turned them inside out, getting them to support him, and he was backed by roars of approval. He stated, "You can see that what motivates us is neither self-conceit nor self-interest, but only a burning desire to join the battle in this grave 11th hour for our German fatherland. One last thing I can tell you, either the German Revolution begins tonight, or we will be all dead by dawn." He then went back in to speak and ordered Göring and Hess to take members of the Bavarian government into custody. Eventually it was claimed that Hitler had got what he wanted, but there was great confusion that evening amongst the government of Bavaria, the army, the police and others deciding whether to support Hitler's revolution or not. A number of key buildings had been seized, and a local garrison noticed Ernst Röhm's SA men coming out of the beer hall. They were fired upon by the soldiers, and Röhm was forced to fall back. In the following morning, Hitler ordered the seizure of the Munich City Council, and he then realised that things had slowed down. The people of the Putsch had lost some heart, as they had not instantly gained power, and they did not know where to turn. Ludendorff cried out, "We will march," and along with Röhm and Hitler, 2,000 men marched out of the beer hall with no destination. But they were stopped in front of the Feldherrnhalle by 130 soldiers under the command of the state police, and the two groups exchanged gunfire. With this, 4 police officers were killed, along with 16 Nazis. Following this, Hitler and Ludendorff left Munich, and Goering also did after being shot in the leg. 2 days later, Hitler was arrested, and he was then charged with a crime that in history usually led to the execution of the individual found guilty. Hitler was accused of high treason in the People's Court, and a number of his conspirators, including Rudolf Hess, had been arrested, but a number had managed to flee. The government cracked down on the Nazi Party, banning its newspaper and the party as a whole. Hitler had been in trouble before with the law, but his trial began on the 26th of February 1924 and lasted until the 1st of April. The lay judges themselves were very pro-Hitler and pro-Nazi, and they had to be completely convinced by the presiding judge not to acquit Hitler. But their influence managed to get Hitler a very lenient sentence, that being 5 years imprisonment. It was the mildest form of jail sentence available, excluding forced labour, and meant Hitler would be kept inside of a comfortable cell. He was allowed to receive visitors daily for many hours, and with this the belief was that the judge thought Hitler's intentions were honourable, and that his motives were justified, yet slightly illegal and misguided. It was very sympathetic. Whilst in prison, Hitler was served breakfast on a table with a white tablecloth by his fellow prisoners. He was allowed to have coffee and toast with marmalade, and he also watched prisoners engage in boxing matches. He was allowed to visit the prison library and gardens, and enjoyed strolling down a lane past flowers and fruit trees. In his cell he drew stage sets for Wagner operas, and in the evening sung nationalist songs with the prison band. He would only spend 8 months before his release for good behaviour, and with this he gained the success that he wanted. He became a great celebrity, and his trial and the events of the Munich Putsch were publicised greatly in worldwide newspapers, and across Germany Adolf Hitler became a household name. It was this treason charge and lenient sentencing that allowed Hitler to write Mein Kampf, which itself was dedicated to the fallen of the Putsch. The book was 782 pages long and sold 12 million copies by the end of the Second World War. It would be in this publication that he would first spread the hatred and disgusting ideology that he perpetuated during his time as a dictator of Germany. He also called for expansion of German lands to the east, called Lebensraum, which would outline his need to take lands preceding the Second World War. Hitler claimed that, "When I left Landsberg everybody wept, but not I." He believed that his time in prison gave him a fearless faith, that optimism, that confidence in our destiny, which nothing could shake thereafter. There were many people across Germany in the decade of the Munich Putsch that were executed across the country for far less than Adolf Hitler did. He ultimately called to overthrow the Weimar Republic and the government, and led an army against this. This was treason. During the Tudor period, a minor prediction about the death of a monarch could lead to someone losing their head. The fact Hitler escaped execution was down to the leniency of those judges that had the opportunity to cut the head off the snake, and to take down the Nazi Party when they could have. This would have changed history forever, and possibly the Second World War would have been avoided, and it's likely that the party would never have got off the ground. It was the captivating nature of Hitler and his charismatic leadership that enticed so many to support the Nazis, but the judges had the chance to stop him in his tracks, but failed to do so. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.